AMD and OpenAI just announced one of the biggest partnerships of the entire AI era. And this deal doesn't just change the game for AMD, it changes the direction for every single AI stock out there. In this episode, I'll break down everything you need to know about this massive partnership and what it means for AMD, Nvidia, and the rest of the AI market. Your time is valuable, so let's get right into it. This is not financial advice. And if you enjoy research-driven breakdowns like this one, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and ensures you don't miss the next update. Here's what we'll cover. The huge new partnership between AMD and OpenAI. What this deal means for AMD's data center business. How it differs from OpenAI's $100 billion deal with Nvidia. And what all this means for every other AI stock moving forward. Earlier this week, AMD and OpenAI announced a plan to deploy 6 gigawatts of AMD GPUs over the next few years. As part of the deal, OpenAI will receive warrants to buy up to 160 million shares of AMD stock for just 1 cent each. But those shares only vest when specific performance milestones are hit. For example, the first block of shares unlocks once the first gigawatt of GPUs is deployed, while other blocks are tied to AMD's stock, reaching certain price targets. To understand what that really means, let's dig into the scale of this. AMD's MI350X Instinct accelerators, their top-tier data center GPUs, cost around $25,000 apiece. Each of them draws a few kilowatts of power, depending on configuration. If OpenAI plans to deploy 6 gigawatts of AMD GPUs, and we assume they're all liquid-cooled, that's roughly 4.3 million GPUs in total. AMD's data center revenues last quarter were about $3.2 billion, and roughly half of that, around $1.6 billion, came from their AI accelerator segment. If we divide that by $25,000 per GPU, AMD sold roughly 64,000 GPUs last quarter, or about 200,000 per year. So this OpenAI deal alone represents over 20 years' worth of AMD's current annual data center GPU sales. Even just the first phase, 1 gigawatt of GPUs rolling out in the second half of next year, equals roughly 1 million GPUs, which is about 5 times AMD's yearly output right now. That scale is mind-blowing. At AMD's current run rate of around $7 billion to $8 billion in annual AI accelerator revenue, this partnership could more than double their entire data center GPU business and boost AMD's total company revenue by about 40%, depending on pricing and product mix. To put that in perspective, if Nvidia got a deal of the same relative size, equal to 20 years of their own GPU shipments, it would translate to around 70 million GPUs worth over $2 trillion, equivalent to 120 gigawatts of compute power, which is roughly the capacity of every existing data center on Earth today. That's how monumental this is for AMD's scale. But what's even more interesting is how the equity part of the deal works. OpenAI isn't buying 10% of AMD, like some headlines suggest. Instead, AMD is granting OpenAI performance-based warrants, the right to buy stock for 1 penny each, only if OpenAI actually meets those massive deployment goals. In other words, AMD is rewarding OpenAI for hitting milestones, not the other way around. If OpenAI fully deploys all 4.3 million GPUs, they unlock all 160 million shares, which would dilute AMD's shareholders by about 9% at current share counts. The last milestone is the biggest one. AMD's stock reaching $600 per share, roughly triple today's price. If AMD hits that, the company would be worth around $1 trillion, and OpenAI's equity stake would be worth about $100 billion. Even before that happens, though, AMD gets multi-billion-dollar hardware orders, deeper integration into OpenAI's infrastructure, and validation as a top-tier AI hardware provider. Something that could attract every other AI company looking for alternatives to Nvidia. So how does this differ from Nvidia's recent $100 billion partnership with OpenAI? Nvidia's deal was a direct capital investment, money changing hands for infrastructure and collaboration. AMD's, on the other hand, is performance-driven equity. OpenAI only earns those shares if AMD delivers the hardware, and OpenAI actually scales it successfully. It's a high-risk, high-reward structure, but one that could permanently change AMD's standing in the AI industry. The global AI market is projected to grow 19-fold over the next 9 years, which translates to a compound annual growth rate of around 38% through 2034. And companies like Meta, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft are expected to spend over $400 billion on AI infrastructure by 2026, up from roughly $220 billion in 2024, growing at a similar rate of about 37% per year. That's roughly 3 times faster than the historical growth rate of the S&P 500. In other words, AI infrastructure is scaling at an exponential pace, faster than most investors can even comprehend. And here's the most powerful insight of all. According to Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, demand for AI inference, that's the actual compute used to run models in production, won't grow 100-fold or even 1,000-fold. It's going to grow 1 billion-fold over the next few years. That sounds insane until you break it down. There are 4 main reasons behind this billion times surge. First, since ChatGPT launched in 2022, adoption of generative AI has spread faster than smartphones or tablets did in their early years. We're seeing mass adoption across every industry. Second, token usage per prompt has exploded. Early GPT queries took a few hundred tokens. Today, models process thousands to tens of thousands of tokens per prompt as they read, analyze, and reason through complex data. More tokens per prompt equals more compute. Third, AI use cases have expanded far beyond text generation into chip design, materials science, gene sequencing, drug discovery, signal processing, and even creative industries like film, music, and gaming. In every one of those fields, AI isn't just a tool. It's becoming part of the production process itself. Fourth, and maybe the most important, AI agents are starting to take action on behalf of users, even spinning up other AIs as part of larger workflows. Just like we all have multiple devices today, a laptop, a phone, a tablet, it's likely we'll all have multiple AI agents in the near future. A work assistant, a personal assistant, a financial planner, a content curator, all powered by different models, all generating demand for compute. Each of these 4 drivers, more users, more use cases, more tokens, and more agents, has already grown more than 10x over the last 3 years. Multiply them together, and that's where the billion-fold inference demand growth comes from. And here's what that really means for investors. If demand for AI compute grows that fast, supply can't possibly keep up. In a market growing faster than any single company can serve, AMD and NVIDIA aren't competing head-to-head. They're both selling into unlimited demand. Every GPU NVIDIA produces will get deployed. Every accelerator AMD makes will get used. Every ASIC Broadcom designs will find a home. The entire AI hardware sector will be capacity constrained for years. That's the real story behind AMD's OpenAI deal. It's not just a win for AMD. It's a validation that there's more demand than any single supplier can fill, and that AMD is now firmly part of the conversation at the highest level of AI infrastructure. As AI adoption accelerates, this partnership gives AMD a direct line into OpenAI's growth, and by extension, into the growth of every other company building on top of OpenAI's ecosystem. That means higher utilization for data center providers, stronger demand for hyperscalers like Microsoft and Amazon, and rising valuation multiples across the AI supply chain. AMD has already proven that it can dominate markets where it doesn't directly compete on NVIDIA's exact playing field. With OpenAI betting on AMD to deliver millions of GPUs over the next few years, it's clear both companies see a trillion-dollar future ahead. This partnership could be the inflection point that turns AMD from a strong competitor into a global AI leader, one that helps power the next decade of intelligent computing. So, If you want to stay ahead of these kinds of game-changing announcements and understand how they impact the broader AI market, make sure to like this video and subscribe right now. It helps the channel and keeps you in the loop for the next major update. Thanks for watching. And remember, in the AI era, knowledge compounds just like capital does. The best investment you can make is in understanding the technology shaping our future.